Hello, everybody. We are excited to be back for our second season of the Mental Game Podcast. We had a really fun opportunity doing it the first season last semester, and we're excited to bring the Mental Game back to you this semester. We've had a lot of cool things happen since we first started the podcast, and we're excited to share some big news and some firsts for this episode. We have a special guest this week, and he's got some firsts for us. He's going to be the first football player we've had on the show, and he will also be the first two-sport athlete we've had on the show. So we're excited to have that first, or a couple of firsts, I should say. And then we have some big announcements. Thank you to all you back last semester who helped out for the Dine to Donate, both those two episodes that we did those. It was a really awesome experience, and we were able to raise up to $100, and we donated that $100 to the Hayden Hurst Foundation this past summer, so that was awesome. That was super exciting. So appreciate all of you who came in and supported the show and came and ordered pizza during the Dine to Donate. It was awesome to even just $100 donate to the foundation was pretty cool.
Better than nothing, right?
Yeah, and getting the thank you email from the Hayden Hurst Foundation was super heartfelt and really made us feel like it was truly a worthwhile experience. So thank you again. Also to Prairie Sky Bread, who helped us with the Dine to Donate, and once again are letting us record the podcast here in the bakery as well.
Yeah, and a very special announcement. Congratulations to Philip Green here, my co-host. He was named to the All-State Good Deeds team, and congratulations. I don't know if you want to go in deep about what that entails.
Yeah, so when we first started the podcast, our main goal was to just kind of make as big of an impact as we could on the Minot State athletic community, because that's obviously where we're most centered. And then fortunately our head coach, Mike Aldridge, came up to me one day after practice and told me he was going to nominate me for this All-State Good Works team, and basically he's like, we're just going to kind of see what happens, and they recognize football players doing things off the field in their community, and we went through a whole nomination process, and then just this past week it was announced that I was named to the final 22 team for the All-State AFCA Good Works team. So it's pretty cool, and there's going to be some more things to come with that. We'll get more details as we go, but for now it's an honor to be nominated, and we're super excited that the podcast is kind of getting some recognition outside of Minot, and we're looking forward to continuing to bring the mental health awareness in athletics, specifically in Minot athletics, but then broaden it out to the surrounding area.
Create more awareness for athletes struggling.
Yeah, so those some super cool announcements. We appreciate all of you for tuning into the show, and we're super excited for this season. I know it's really, I mean, when I first talked to you about this podcast, it was kind of just like, hey, we have an opportunity, let's see what happens. Yeah. And it snowballed, and so this show has meant a lot to me, just get an opportunity to not only talk to a lot of cool athletes and people about things that aren't necessarily talked about a lot in sports, but it's been awesome to work with you, and I'm super excited for this season.
It's been awesome to work with you, and it's kind of cool now we're seeing people reach out to us that want to come on, and it's a great experience to have them on the show and pick their brain a little bit and see how everyone struggles and deals with stuff like this.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, we've got all these ideas, and I'm super excited for what we want. And I know our athletic director, Andy Carter, has already told me he would love to be on the show, so we're excited to have him down the road, and we're going to have a lot of fun this semester. We're going to learn. We're going to have some tough conversations, but we're going to hopefully make a lot of progress.
Yeah.
Troy, what has this show meant to you?
This show to me has kind of been something to maybe like search within myself. Didn't really know I might struggle with mental health prior to this, and for me to come on, talk about it, and learn from other people, learn from you about the things we face that might be mental health that I didn't know was mental health, has been just kind of self-awareness that I didn't have before, and allowed me to grow as a person. And it's been a fun time, and I'm honored to be a part of it, and I can't wait to just keep pushing forward with this and break that stigma. Yeah,
I think you saying grow as a person is definitely how I feel the most with this podcast. It was started out with just a conversation with Jasmine, the owner here, saying, do you want to run a podcast? And then snowballed into this experience where we've heard a lot of cool ideas and opportunities to grow and learn from others' experience, and I think that's really been helpful.
Yeah, no, I agree.
With further ado, we'd like to introduce our special guest today. Joining us from both the Minot State football team and the Minot State track and field team is Logan KRUEGER. Thank you, Logan, for being on the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're super excited to have you. Like we said, two-sport athlete, so you definitely have the athletics and the academics all year round. A lot of guys, luckily, are given the opportunity after the season's over to have that break, but you're full go all the time, so we're excited to talk to you about how you manage that. So we want to start out with, what have you learned mental health-wise being a two-sport athlete?
Definitely, I'd say time management is the biggest thing I've learned. Just from the fact of the mental side of it, to be able to find time to get away from it, to clear your head, decompress. It might not be a lot, but like, for example, bus rides. For me, I'm traveling year-round track. We don't have a home facility, so every week's in a wave meet. But then we have 4 to 12-hour bus rides. Take an hour, take 2 hours on there. That's when you get to decompress, just be alone, just kind of unwind a little bit, and then get some time to yourself to like think about stuff outside of athletics and school.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've been on those 12-hour bus rides with you, and I've never really thought about that. For me, the bus ride's always like, we got to go sit on a bus. But I like that. That's something that I definitely think I'll start.
It's a good way to look at it, right? Because
especially-
you're on a bus anyhow, why not make the most of it, right?
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a cool opportunity. Logan, you reached out to me this past week after our game saying you wanted to be on the show. What was about this show? What was that you wanted to be on the show for?
I mean, I've been teammates with you guys now for 4 years. I thought it was awesome when I first saw your podcast come out. I know Troy and I, throughout the years, wanted to do a podcast about just something like Build the Dam or something sports related. So I've always wanted to be on some type of podcast, but this one specifically I want to be a coach someday, and just to get out there kind of my understanding of mental health, how I deal with it, and kind of your guys' experiences with all the guests you have had on the show.
Do you think your experience with mental health and your willingness to open up and talk about it will help you as a coach?
I think it will, for me to be able to be out there with it and keep it a topic that's not uncomfortable for any team I end up coaching in the future.
Yeah, for sure. So you play 2 sports. Burnout is it's going to happen when you're playing 1 sport, let alone 2 sports. You talked about decompressing. What are some other tips and tricks you have to just prevent burnout? Because obviously you're got, some might say, 3 full-time jobs with track and football and being a student.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a full-time job, that's for sure. And then being in 2, sorry about that.
No worries.
In the spring, it's really busy, because in the past I would have track and field and spring ball. So time was not easy to come by for homework, sleep, food, whatever. As I got older and I became better with time management and speaking, just going to talk to people, I was able to, with Coach A and the track staff, come up with a balance. So I wasn't needed to be in 3 places at once. And with burnout-wise, it's kind of how I approach it is, and anyone that does multiple sports at any point kind of knows this, whatever sport you're in at that time is what you're focused on. So football season, I'm focused on football. Track season, focused on track. And then summer, it gets stronger because football and throwing, being a defensive lineman and a thrower, the weight training kind of combines together, so it benefits me for both during our summer workouts.
That's awesome. When it comes to burnout, I know it can be tough because you want to be successful in everything you do, and you want to get the most out of everything you do. Have you taught yourself or trained yourself to know, like, it's okay to step aside right now? Like, I can only do so much. It's okay to prevent the burnout by just stepping aside and taking that time to yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, example, when football, in a normal year, last year was a little different, but in a normal year when football season's done, I will take a week or 2 depending on, how my body's feeling, how I'm mentally feeling after a football season. And then I'll still work out, like keep the body going, but I'll ease my way into the next sport. Just to let my body recover, let my mind recover, and kind of have some transition time to, focus on school, get caught up in that if I fell behind in anything, and then transition into it. And then the same thing at the end of track season before summer workouts. We have finals at that time of year. I'm going to take, a week, go see my family, go up to the lake, just, again, decompress, get away from everything, and then hit it hard for the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a common theme in athletics, like taking that pause or like relaxation almost feels like the opposite of what you should be doing. It's almost like drilled into our mind that you should always be going 100% all the time, and we forget that it's okay to take a step back.
We forget sometimes that it's okay to be a normal student for a week or 2, right? And relax. It's probably tough being a 2-sport athlete like yourself, KRUGER, because you're be coming in from football, 11-game season, traveling every other weekend, playing a lot of good football teams, a lot of big guys, like 6'6" guys that are heavy and strong. And it's got to be tough to say, hey, I can take a week off, but then in 2 weeks, I got to go throw against some other athletes that are just as strong as me, throw the shot put as far as me, or whatever it may be, right? And that's got to be tough mentally to handle. It's tough for us, I imagine, like even just ending the season, like that's like a big weight lifted when our season comes to an end. It's like, hey, we got a little free time, we can relax a little bit before we go right back at it. But you don't have that luxury. That can just stress you out, I imagine.
I would think even if you are a two-sport athlete, sometimes it feels like we got to hit the ground running right after the season ends. And it's like, no, it's okay to take some time and relax. And even it doesn't even have to be necessarily relax, but take some time to take care of your body. Like when we got back from our Wayne State game, that recovery lift, Howman was like, no, you are all doing stretching and mobility and recovery. You don't need to go and beat your body up anymore in the weight room. You're going to go and physically make your body feel better. And that's something that I think we lack in the athletic world, is you got to grind, but it's okay. There's ways to grind that'll prepare you that aren't going to take as much of a toll on your body, like recovery and stretching and taking time for your mental.
And that can tie into, we've talked about before, that old school mindset of, you know, I mean, you got to power through that, you got to push through that, but sometimes you got to step back and be, hey, I need a day for my head to rest, I need a day for my body to rest, decompress.
Yeah, there's definitely other ways to attack some things that it doesn't feel per se like what you're expected to do, but it can be very beneficial.
Change of scenery, I think, is a big impact on mental health in general, where you guys talked about where it's go. There's always that weight on your shoulders. For me, when I'm going from football to track, it is and it isn't. Like, they're both very demanding sports, but it's two different sides of it. Football, it's a full team sport. You have, 22 guys, offense and defense, where you have to be on the same page. We meet very regularly. We lift together. We are always together, all of us. Where track, it's kind of more, there's a team points, there's teams involved, but then at the end of the day, it's you, the implement, and the ring. It's just you in there, and it's kind of a different atmosphere, I guess, where it's refreshing to kind of get that experience in that state of mind versus a full-blown team activity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
Yeah, no, I like that change of scenery. It's kind of like during our fall camp when we're going, and it's your professional football player every day for the month straight or whatever, and then Coach A will randomly throw in, we're bowling today. And it's that change of scenery, and it's really nice to just...
It's a nice little mental break.
Yeah.
And you just kind of step back from everything that's going on around you. Breathe, right?
Yeah. So you've mentioned that you want to be a coach after your playing days are up. How do you feel approaching your coaches now, comfortability-wise, with mental health struggles?
You see, at Minot State, I think we've improved along coaching staffs on both football and track, where it's no longer like I don't want to show weakness to a coach. I'm comfortable going to coaches on either sport and being like, hey, I have personal stuff, family stuff, or just mental stuff going on right now, and I'm not in the best state of mind. And they're there, they understand it, they'll help you. And then in the past, like Coach A, we had this year for our team meeting at the beginning, they had the counseling service from Minot State stop by and talk to us. So they've done a good job of, one, being there for us, and two, notifying us and explaining the resources available to us on campus.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think it's awesome that you feel the same way with both your coaching staffs that you have, so that's awesome to see. And I think the more we continue to make that the norm in athletics, the more when you become a coach 10 years down the road, your players feel the same way about you. So I think that's awesome that we're starting it now. We just got to get it to snowball and continue to make the rounds. So campus changes, we've talked about this a lot with pretty much every athlete we've had on campus, about just some things that they would like to see to help bring mental health awareness to the athletic department and sports, the sporting culture. And so some of the things we've talked about in the past are like taking, not Beaver Days, what we call them, but a day for yourself, or offering counselors specific to like a sports team, similar to like how we have athletic trainers, so like an athletic counselor. Do you have any specifics that you can think of that you would consider helpful to you
I think for sure that if we added a counselor that was more sports specific, that'd be very good to the athletic community, because not every counselor on campus has sports experience. They're not. It's a different identity being an athlete.
For sure.
Like, if you're an athlete, you kind of identify yourself as, you're a hard worker. You push yourself probably more than you should most of the time, and then you're there to help others, but you don't always want to ask for help yourself.
Yeah.
So I think adding a counselor that would be sports specific for the athletic department would be very nice, and also just continuing to spread awareness about the resources already available.
Yeah, and I think I liked how you worded it like that, because everyone knows that we have athletic trainers. Everyone's, you're expected to see them at every opportunity that you can. So it'd be pretty cool to have an even if it's just one counselor for all of athletics, who just has a broad awareness. I think it would encourage athletes to understand that it's okay to reach out for help. Because sometimes when you're just going down to counseling services, you've never met these people and you barely even know that they're on campus. It's hard to go and open up to them. But if you know that there's someone who's specifically there for your athletic mental health, I think that would really encourage student athletes to understand that it's okay to reach out for that help. Personally, or I guess let me word that better, between you two, I wanted to reach out and kind of have you open up about some of your own personal experiences with mental health. I'll let you go first, Logan.
Okay. So I guess my biggest issue with mental health would have been back in my freshman year of college. That transitional year, just from high school, even though I am from Minot, I still moved into the dorms. I wanted to get as much of a college experience as I could while still being in my hometown. Mm-hmm. And just understanding time management, the pressure of college athletics, the pressure of college classes. And then the worst was the spring of 2019, where I was in spring ball and I was in outdoor track. And then I think I had a 16 credit class load, which average for a normal person, but with 2 sports at once, that was a bit too much for me. And then with that, I wasn't sleeping well. I was getting pressure from coaches on both sides to gain weight, and instead I ended up being sick of the dining plan. I ended up losing about 30 pounds, was about 220 at my lowest that year. Got just pale, I wasn't physically healthy because my mental health declined. Mm-hmm. And then after spring ball ended, it became more time for myself to eat, just to unwind some more. And then finally after that whole school year came down, I took 2 weeks, got out of town, saw friends, saw family, and that was kind of what brought me back to reality. And it taught me the importance of time management and just being able to take a breath when I can.
That's awesome. I really liked how you mentioned your physical health took a hit because of your mental health. Because I think a lot of times, we've talked about it in the past, but people don't realize, like, if you're not mentally okay, your physical's going to draw down. We've talked about, like, someone could play so well in a sporting event because they're physically great, but maybe their mental health is down. Imagine how much better they would play if they were feeling even great mentally. And I think a lot of times there's that disconnect between the athletic world, not recognizing that, like, we obviously we want to boost performance, and we always think it's physically how we want to boost performance, but if you can boost it mentally, it's only going to boost the physical performance.
No, yeah, absolutely. Especially when I think back to that first outdoor track season and that first spring ball. I was struggling in practice for football, and then I'd struggle in practice at track, and then I'd struggle at meets for track. Where once, fast forward a year later, or fast forward to last season, where I grew as a college athlete. I wasn't a 19-year-old kid, 21, 22 years old now. I know how to take care of myself better, both physically and mentally, and then with that, results grew for both football and track, and in the weight room. I was able to put on weight that I needed to, clean up how I eat, how I prepare every week, and put time aside to just make sure I'm ready for game day or meet day.
Yeah, and you make a great point, just the growing up process. And you're a kid when you come in to begin your athletic career in college, and I mean, you don't want to babysit the athletes, but like sometimes we need some guidance on like, here's how you can take care of yourself better mentally, because we're given that like, here's what you should be eating, and here's how you should be training, but a lot of times we're neglecting the mental health. Like here's how much you should be sleeping every night. Like put away the video games or whatever, or you should be eating breakfast before you go and work out. Wake up 30 minutes earlier to make sure you get something in your body. So I think I've talked with our strength coach Caleb about it, just like the importance of sleep, and then like the importance of getting food in your body before you go and lift. And like sometimes if you don't want to wake up 30 minutes earlier, but if you can sacrifice going to bed 30 minutes earlier and not playing those video games to make sure you're doing what's necessary for your both physical and mental health. And you had mentioned early on in the show how the show would kind of open up your eyes to some mental health struggles that you didn't necessarily recognize. Can you talk a little about that, Troy?
Yeah, so I kind of recognized that when spring came to an end, when we did our last episode in spring, that something was kind of off in me. And I kind of didn't really accept it for a while. I kind of kept it boxed up all summer. And it's just kind of like the buildup of, I think, being a college athlete and a student. You know, we're asked to do a lot in school alone. And then we have, on top of that, a full-time job, it seems like at times. Like you said, like for a month there this summer in August, we were football, 8 in the morning to 8 at night. That's a lot to take in on a body. And over time, it's going to affect your head, right? And then that's going to trickle down everywhere. And I noticed that. I think I got sick in the middle of fall camp. And I related a lot of that to stress. I was sick in the summer at one point, and that was related to this kind of same thing. And so to go ask help for me is something tough, because we talked about before, mental toughness is mental health are the same thing, and not really. And it was tough for me to realize that, hey, I'm not okay. And opening it up and being like, hey, I need help. I need to seek out, find what's wrong, and find a way to settle down inside. For me, that was the toughest thing to ever do, was to tell my mom and dad that something's wrong with my head. And not like something's wrong with a bad way. It's just like, hey, there's too much going on up there. How do I step back and take a look at this? And I think that's the hardest step to do for any athlete. I mean, I'm sure you guys could attest to it too. It's like, we're out there playing football, you're playing track and field too. It's like, you're looked at as an athlete, but behind the athlete, there's a person that might get forgot about, because you have to get up and, like you said, go work out. And all these things just build up over time, add to stress and add to less sleep and less eating habits, right? And all of a sudden, everything's just way off, out of whack. And so this summer, I went through that problem. And to identify it and try and address it is something that's tough but needed, right? Mm-hmm. I'm glad I did. I feel better now, and I sleep a little better at night. Sometimes I don't sleep still, but I'm taking the steps to get better.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you willing to open up and talk about that, and I liked how it's tough. The first step's always the toughest one, is admitting that you need to go and then going out and searching for that help. But I think the more we make it a norm in the athletic world to talk about mental health and reach out, the easier it's going to be. So for maybe 2 generations down the road, it's a norm, and they aren't necessarily as afraid to reach out.
And it helps to see, like, for me, it helps to see the professional athletes are going through the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's goalies in hockey all the time. So about Kyrie stepped out about it, right, and talked about it. Sometimes you need to just step away and be like, hey, I need a break from this to solve something else that could help me in the long term in my life.
Yeah, and I mean, you see it in regular workplaces. Like, if someone needs to take a step away, and if they're a nurse or whatever their job may be, if they need to step away, it's a little more widely accepted for them to do that than in the sporting world. But I think we're definitely making progress, but we still have a long way to go. So one of the things I want to talk about is kind of your future visions or goals for mental health awareness. What would you like to see happen, maybe say down the road 5 years?
I'd say just, more availability for services. I know it's improved a lot just in the 4 years I've been at Minot State and just overall. But I definitely think that it needs to be addressed for athletes specifically and be more available even at high schools. Like, in high school, your counselor for me was more, okay, let's make your class schedule, rather than, go talk to them about the problems that you're facing when you can't really speak to anyone else. So I'd like to see it at the high school level definitely be brought up more and get the exposure out there, just so if you can solve the problems or get to work on the problems sooner, it's going to be better for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. Something I would like to see is some sort of kind of like a training for the athletic department as a whole, of just like how to recognize mental health struggles, like here's signs or symptoms of what you can look for, because same with when you're an injury, like here's things you should look for to know what kind of injury it is physically, and then some like basic just steps to take to help overcome it or start working on it so that it's more readily available. And maybe we encourage coaches or staff members to go and take like a mental health training program to start the year every year before they go and work with their athletes, kind of like how us as our students have to take the Title IX every year type thing, just a two-day program or whatever, just to kind of build it into making it a norm.
Make the coaches more understanding too, right? I mean, they're coming from, a lot of them might be a little older than we are, like they're 50, 40, 60, whatever. They came at that time where you have to be mentally tough. Mm-hmm. It's not okay to be mentally weak and have these problems. And that would open up the eyes, and that's okay, hey, it's understandable that you're having a tough time, because every day is a different day, right? Mm-hmm. It'd be good just so that they know everything that's going on and know that's normal now and acceptable.
For sure. We always we want the show to be as much of a dialogue rather than just us asking you any questions. So we want to open up to you if there's anything else you want to add, or feel free to ask us anything.
I guess, what do you got? What's the biggest thing you guys have learned since doing this podcast, I guess, from a guest?
Ooh, from a guest.
Yeah.
I really like just some of the ideas, like having a counselor for the athletic department I believe it was Bethany and Callie's idea, and I kind of blew me away. It was our first episode. I was like, that's genius. I really liked that, and just like the willingness to reach out, I think would be probably the biggest thing that I've learned is like, it's not gonna be easy, but oftentimes the right thing to do isn't the easy thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of my thing is self-growth, right? Like I said earlier, from all of this is like, I'm learning that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay, it's gonna be hard to step out and be like, hey, something's wrong with me, coach, and I'm gonna need someone to help me battle this battle, or help me figure it out. And I think that's the most important thing I've learned is like, hey, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's gonna be tough to ask for help, but it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength in my mind that you're trying to get healthy and get better.
Yeah. Anything else?
Anything else, KRUGER?
All set.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show. It was awesome having you. We're really excited for this second season of the Mental Game, and we're really looking forward to all of you who tune in. We're hoping we continue to change the narrative and bring awareness to the sporting world about mental health. We want to just thank you all. We want to remind you to tune in every episode we have. We're hoping to get it rolling this semester when we get a little more free time from football. And we want to once again thank Prairie Sky Bread for hosting us and allowing us to have the opportunity to come and record this podcast. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in.
Have a great day. Go Beavers.
Go Beavers.